Welcome back to the Gospel in Motion. Today we're diving into Mark chapters 6 and 7 in the King James Version. These chapters show Jesus doing the impossible, feeding crowds, walking on water, healing the hurting, and teaching what real faith looks like beyond rules and traditions. If you're a teen looking for a Bible experience that feels bold, alive, and full of purpose, you're in the right place. Let's jump in and watch faith move. Jesus went back to his hometown, and his disciples went with him. When the Sabbath came, he taught in the synagogue. Many who heard him were amazed and said, "Where did he get all this wisdom and power?" They said, "Isn't this the carpenter, Mary's son, the brother of James, Joses, Judas, and Simon? Aren't his sisters here with us?" They were offended by him. Jesus said, "A prophet is honored everywhere except in his own hometown, among his relatives, and in his own house." Because of their unbelief, he didn't do many miracles there, only laid his hands on a few sick people and healed them. He was amazed at their lack of faith. Then he went around teaching in the surrounding villages. Jesus called the 12 and sent them out 2 by 2, giving them authority over unclean spirits. He told them to take nothing for the journey except a staff, no bag, no food, no money. They were to wear sandals but not bring extra clothes. He said, "Wherever you enter a house, stay there until you leave that town. And if people won't receive you or listen to you, shake the dust off your feet as a warning to them." So they went out and preached that people should repent. They cast out many demons and anointed many sick people with oil and healed them. King Herod heard about Jesus because his name was becoming famous. Some said Jesus was John the Baptist raised from the dead. Others said he was Elijah. Others said he was a prophet like the ones from long ago. But Herod said, "This is John whom I beheaded. He has risen." Herod had arrested John and put him in prison because of Herodias, his brother Philip's wife, whom he had married. John had told Herod, "It's not lawful for you to have your brother's wife." Herodias held a grudge against John and wanted him dead, but she couldn't kill him. Herod respected John, knowing he was righteous and holy, and he protected him. He liked listening to John even though it confused him. But the chance for Herodias came on Herod's birthday. He held a banquet for his officials and leaders. Herodias' daughter came in and danced, and Herod and his guests were pleased. The king said, "Ask me for anything and I'll give it to you." He even promised with an oath, "I'll give you anything, up to half my kingdom." She went to her mother and asked, "What should I ask for?" Her mother said, "The head of John the Baptist." The girl hurried back to the king and said, "I want John the Baptist's head on a platter right now." The king was deeply upset, but because of his oath and his guests, he didn't want to refuse her. He sent a guard to the prison to bring John's head. The guard beheaded John, brought his head on a platter, and gave it to the girl, who gave it to her mother. John's disciples came, took his body, and laid it in a tomb. The apostles returned to Jesus and told him everything they had done and taught. Jesus said, "Come away with me to a quiet place and rest." So many people were coming and going that they didn't even have time to eat. They went by boat to a quiet place, but people saw them leaving and ran ahead from all the towns. When Jesus got out of the boat, he saw the huge crowd and felt compassion for them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. He began teaching them many things. As the day grew late, the disciples said, "This is a remote place. Send the people away so they can buy food." But Jesus said, "You give them something to eat." They said, "Should we spend a huge amount of money to buy bread for all these people?" Jesus asked, "How many loaves do you have?" "Go check." They said, 5 loaves and 2 fish. Jesus told the people to sit down in groups on the green grass. They sat in groups of hundreds and fifties. Jesus took the loaves and fish, looked up to heaven, blessed the food, broke the loaves, and gave them to the disciples to distribute. He divided the fish as well. Everyone ate until they were full. The disciples picked up 12 baskets of leftover bread and fish. About 5,000 men were fed. Immediately, Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go ahead to Bethsaida while he dismissed the crowd. After sending them away, he went up a mountain to pray. That night, the boat was in the middle of the lake, and Jesus was alone on land. He saw the disciples struggling to row because the wind was against them. Around early morning, he walked on the water toward them. He was about to pass by them, but when they saw him walking on the water, they thought he was a ghost and cried out. They were terrified, but Jesus said, "Take courage. It's me. Don't be afraid." He climbed into the boat and the wind stopped. They were completely amazed. They still didn't understand the miracle of the loaves because their hearts were hardened. When they crossed over, they landed at Gennesaret and anchored there. People recognized Jesus immediately and ran throughout the region, bringing sick people on mats to wherever they heard he was. Wherever he went, villages, cities, or countryside, people laid the sick in the streets and begged him to let them touch even the edge of his clothes. Everyone who touched him was healed. Some Pharisees and teachers of the law came from Jerusalem and gathered around Jesus. They noticed that some of his disciples ate without washing their hands the way the elders' traditions required. The Pharisees and many Jews wouldn't eat unless they washed their hands in a specific ritual way. They also followed traditions about washing cups, pots, and other items. The Pharisees and teachers asked Jesus, "Why don't your disciples follow the traditions of the elders? They eat with unwashed hands." Jesus said, "Isaiah was right about you hypocrites when he wrote that people honor God with their lips, but their hearts are far from him. They worship in vain, teaching human rules as if they were God's commands. You ignore God's commandments so you can keep your own traditions. For example, Moses said, 'Honor your father and mother, and anyone who curses their parents should be put to death.' But you say that if someone declares their possessions korban, meaning dedicated to God, they don't have to help their parents. You cancel God's command in order to keep your tradition, and you do many things like this." Then Jesus called the crowd and said, "Listen to me and understand this. It's not what goes into a person that makes them unclean. It's what comes out of them." When Jesus went into the house away from the crowd, his disciples asked him about what he meant. He said, "Are you still not getting it? Nothing that goes into a person from the outside makes them unclean. It doesn't go into their heart, it goes into their stomach and then out of the body." With this, Jesus declared all foods clean. He continued, "What comes out of a person is what makes them unclean. Because evil thoughts come from inside, things like sexual sin, theft, murder, adultery, greed, wickedness, deceit, lust, envy, slander, pride, and foolishness. All these evil things come from within and make a person unclean." Jesus left that place and went to the region of Tyre and Sidon. He entered a house and didn't want anyone to know, but he couldn't stay hidden. A woman whose daughter had an unclean spirit heard about him and came to him, falling at his feet. She was a Greek, a Syrophoenician woman, and she begged Jesus to cast the demon out of her daughter. Jesus said, "Let the children be fed first. It's not right to take the children's bread and give it to the dogs." She replied, "Yes, Lord, but even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs." Jesus said, "Because of what you said, go, the demon has left your daughter." She went home and found her daughter lying on the bed, completely freed. Jesus left the region of Tyre and went through Sidon to the Sea of Galilee, into the area of Decapolis. People brought him a man who was deaf and could barely speak, and they begged Jesus to heal him. Jesus took the man aside from the crowd, put his fingers in the man's ears, spit, and touched the man's tongue. He looked up to heaven, sighed, and said, "Ephphatha," meaning "be opened." Immediately the man's ears were opened, his tongue was freed, and he could speak clearly. Jesus told them not to tell anyone, but the more he told them not to, the more they spread the news. The people were amazed and said, "He does everything well, he even makes the deaf hear and the mute speak." Thanks for listening to the Gospel in Motion, Mark chapters 6 and 7 from the King James Version. These chapters remind us that Jesus moves with power, compassion, and truth, calling us to a faith that's real and alive. If something in these verses spoke to you, keep going. There's more to discover, more to learn, and more ways to grow. Tap into the next chapter and stay connected as your faith keeps moving.